Hello and good evening to you all. My name is Shashank Singh and I am here in front of you discussing the Daily News Simplified, an answer to what, why and how of newspaper analysis from the perspective of UPSC examination. So we have taken up important news and articles from The Hindu, Indian Express and Business Line newspaper, and as the practice goes, we have segregated the discussion into two parts. The first one is mains and the second part is prelims related. For mains, we have taken up topic of wealth redistribution, then overview of Sudanese conflict from the perspective of map location. Third is the Indian Defense University. For prelims perspective, we have taken up topic of delimitation, pink hydrogen, tiger translocation, anti-dumping duty, and Goldene. So before moving to discussion, we have an important announcement for you. Raus IAS is conducting optional orientation classes on 11th and 12th of May. You can register for these classes from our online portal, that is official website. Link for the registration has been provided in the chat box and also in the description box. So let us begin our discussion with the first topic of today's session, which is inspired from this news article which featured on page number 7 of the Hindu newspaper. The title reads as "Make the Poor Richer Without Making the Rich Poorer." Now, author says that since Congress has mentioned the term redistribution in its manifesto, the opposition parties, mainly BJP, is targeting Congress on these words, on this word, that is redistribution, and they are alleging that Congress is planning to take away money from everyone, including the rich, and will distribute it to the minorities, poor minorities. This is what author has to say. And author presents his case in this news article regarding why redistribution is required, how it should be done, etc. So from your examination perspective, we can see that topic of inclusive growth, issues arising out of it, the growth, employment, all these issues are important and has been mentioned in your syllabus. If you will look for the PYQ, in 2019, they have asked a question based on inclusive growth. Secondly, in 2017 also, they have asked you to find or highlight the salient features of inclusive growth. Now, inclusive growth and inequality is a broader topic, and we have already covered the different aspects of inclusive growth and equality in DNS session dated 24th April 2024. So you can refer to this DNS session for complete understanding, holistic understanding of the topic. We will restrict ourselves to the context of what the article has or the author has to say about the inequality and income redistribution. So first thing first, author says why to redistribute, what is the need. So there is a clear cut, there are many findings that there remains a wide divide between rich and poor in India. Rather than saying divide, we can call it a disparity. And gravity you will understand with the finding of various reports, which says that 1% of the population, the top 1%, it earns around 23% of national income. Top 1% earns around 23% of national income, while bottom 50% earns roughly around 50% of national income. Now, according to author, this has widened. The gap between the income of rich and poor has widened in last 2 decades, especially. So he says he has identified two major reasons for it. Why the gulf has been widened at a larger pace in last 2 decades. First is the basic characteristic of our economy, which is jobless growth. Now, author says that in 1980s, 1% increase in GDP used to create n number of jobs. Now, when we will compare it with now, that is 2020, 2021, 22, he says that number of formal jobs are less than one fourth of what was being created during 1980s. So let's take an example to understand. According to author, if in 80s 1% jump in GDP was creating 100 jobs, formal jobs, not all kinds of job, he is referring to formal jobs. So now this number has gone down below 25. Now 1% GDP is not even creating 25 jobs. So this is the main reason that he highlights for this divide. And he says that more focus on capital intensive economic activity rather than focusing on labor intensive activity is the sole reason behind such discrepancies. The second reason he identifies is the unbalanced tax burden. Now he says that out of 100 rupees that government of India earns, major chunk, that is around 64 rupees, is being earned by taxing the indirect like GST, indirect tax like income tax, to poor and middle class people. Out of this 100, 64 is coming from poor and middle class, while the corporate sector is only contributing rupees 36 out of 100. So he says it's kind of double whammy for the poor and middle class, because they are they are marginalized, or they are sidelined in the economic growth process. You can see it with their national their income level, that is just 15% of the bottom 50%. And with this lower level of income, they are being taxed more. So he says that this unbalanced tax burden coupled with jobless growth demands for redistribution of wealth. And that is why there is this much discrepancy in India. So in solution, the first and most common solution, which has become the focal point of political debate these days, is the taxing the rich. Taxing the rich. Now, author says that this is not a tenable solution. This is not sustainable, because taxing the rich will not be sufficient for improving the situation, to remove this disparity, or to address this disparity. This amount that will come by taxing the rich would not be sufficient. Secondly, he says this is kind of a vindicative approach, which will in turn disturb the entire atmosphere, the economic atmosphere of the country. People will be aversive to invest, and we can witness a flight of money, capital, or investment, because it looks vindicative and has a negative connotation towards investor who wants to invest in India. So he outrightly rejects such suggestions of taxing the rich. In place of this, he suggests three measures, that is generating employment, overhaul tax structure, and providing social security. For generating employment, he says that we need to focus more on the labor intensive sector, and we must make it the apprenticeship should be made a right of youth. Second, he suggests an employment based incentives for corporates. He says that they must be incentivized. They must be incentivized to take in providing the jobs. Further, he says that unskilled labor intensive economic activities must be promoted. The, you can say, labor incentive, and to be labor intensive, or to be precise, the unskilled labor intensive economic progress should be made. Secondly, he says we must overhaul the tax structure, especially he says that GST regime should be simplified. It is way too complex. Further, he says the tax rates or the slabs should be lowered. And for income tax, he says that a new set of income tax code should be worked upon to make it in sync with the demand of the economy. Further, he says social security net, that is social welfare schemes, must be provided till poor becomes capable of reaping the benefit of economic growth. So in crux, he says that boost the economic growth, maximize the economic growth, lower the unemployment, lower the tax rate, do provide the social security. This is what the crux of this news article. So let us move on to our next part of discussion. And this news article featured on page number 8 of the Hindu newspaper. Now, most of us are more focused upon the war going on in Gaza, the Israel and Hamas. But in a parallel, alongside with the Israel Hamas conflict, there is another human catastrophe which is going on. And this is going on in the northeastern African country of Sudan, where two factions are for control of power are fighting each other. And since last April, that is April 2023, till now, the official figure stands at 15,000 deaths. Around 8 million people have been displaced. According to United Nations, 25 million people require urgent assistance in terms of food, medicines, and shelter. And UN has warned that we are already running out of time if something is not done for the state of affairs in Sudan. Now, from our examination perspective, GS paper 2 mentions international relation. Now, there is the but for prelims perspective, the international places or the places of importance which are recurring in news becomes basis of the MCQs in prelims examination very frequently, the map based question. So here we will take up this article. We will cover the basics related to this Sudanese civil war. We will look into the history and we will understand what went wrong here and what is wrong here till date. And after covering all those details, we will solve some MCQs which are inspired by the previous year UPSC prelims examination. So to begin with, I told you this is a northeastern African countries and shares border with the Red Sea, opens towards Red Sea. The bordering countries are Egypt, Libya, Chad, Central African Republic, South Sudan, Ethiopia, Eritrea. These are the countries bordering Sudan. And let us move on to what has been the history, why there is a crisis in Sudan till date. So we have divided this discussion into this timeline, and first is the time before the independence till 1956. So Sudan used to be a protectorate of United Kingdom and Egypt. It was not an independent country till 1956, and it was known as Anglo Egyptian condominium. So it was a protectorate state. In 1956, Egypt and UK signed a treaty and Sudan earned its independence. But immediately after the independence, problem start. Problem started there. Basically, Sudan is having several ethnic groups. More than 35, 36 ethnic groups are there in Sudan. Now, the northern part of Sudan, if you can see in this map, this is South Sudan. This is South Sudan, and here it is North Sudan. Earlier, both were part of the same country. Now, the northern part was dominated by Arabs and Muslims. Now, this was more prosperous and developed region, whereas the southern part was dominated by Christians and Amenists. Now, this was an underdeveloped area. So, a civil war started and it witnessed two bloody civil wars in two different time frames where millions and millions of people lost their lives. An estimate says that around 5 million people lost their lives in the till South Sudan got independence in 2011. So it all started. Now in 1989, what happened that democratically elected government, the civilian government was toppled by a coup which was orchestrated by dictator Omar al-Bashir. Now he was a military general of Sudanese armed forces. So he toppled the government by orchestrating a coup and he came to the power. Now there was a rebellion in South Sudan during his tenure. Simultaneously, there was a rebellion, or you may say a civil right was going on between two ethnic communities in Darfur region also. Darfur region in Sudan. It is a southwest and southern part of Sudan, present day Sudan. So there were two kind of conflicts going on. So to contain this rebellion, the Darfur rebellion, and to kind of enforce his dictates, which you can call moral policing, the morality police of his own, he took help of a tribal militia, a private militia who used to take money and do the job for al-Bashir, and he took help of them, and they were very successful in containing and protecting his interest. Finally, in 2011, South Sudan got independence, but with the work of this tribal militia, al-Bashir was so happy that through a presidential decree, he made them equivalent to a paramilitary force, and named it as Rapid Support Force. So gave it an official recognition for the first time. Further, in 2017, the Parliament of Sudan passed a law, and it was called RSF, that is Rapid Support Forces Law. And then RSF became an official part of the Sudanese military apparatus. Somehow it became equivalent to the Sudanese armed forces, and various important and crucial cities, location, border posts were being manned by this RSF. And al-Bashir made Hamdan Dagalo as its head. So now Hamdan was head of Rapid Support Force, which was backed by the dictator himself. Definitely the clout was growing, and the importance, significance was growing day by day. But suddenly in 2018, civil unrest erupted. It was on the issue of corruption, unemployment, and famines, recurring famines. So civil rebellion erupted. Now, during this civil rebellion, this RSF, which was created by Bashir, sided with SAF, and in 2019, Bashir was thrown away from his rule. But nothing stopped there, because now again, when he was thrown away by SAF, that is Sudanese army, civilian keep on demanding. They kept on demanding their civilian rule. They wanted democratic government, but certainly SAF was not willing to give it easily. So there was a transition. The model was transition model, civil military transition model, which went on till 2021, and finally SAF commander Abdul Fateh al Burhan again orchestrated a coup and just captured the government. Now, issue started in 2022. Till 2021, SAF, that is Army, and Rapid Support Force, that is Tribal Militia, were hand in hand, hand in gloves. They were moving together in removing the civilian government. Problem started when civilian population and civilian leaders continued their demand of bringing the democratic setup back. Now, there were several plans. Now, both this commander, that is Al Burhan, and Hamdan Dagalo, were on the same pedestal. Problem arose when a plan came which offered to integrate RSF with Sudanese army. Now, Sudanese army commander said that we need to do this integration within 2 years. But Hamdan was not ready to give it away so easily. So he said it would take at least 10 years. Now here started the confrontation between the two contenders of power, that is RSF and SAF. Now, RSF is not any ordinary mercenary force. It has support of Wagner Group of Russia also. Russia invests heavily with RSF in order to take control of Sudanese gold. So they are very powerful. They are almost equivalent to Sudanese armed forces. So what happened in 2023? They came face to face, and many strategic positions, cities, borders, uh, there were troop deployment, firing, killing, and etc. And it is going on because of no settlement plan, or because of no amicable plan which is agreed by all the parties, basically the two parties RSF and SAF. So this was all about the Sudanese conflict, and world is concerned about the humanitarian crisis that is in building, and according to UN, we are already out of time, and we are going to face the world largest hunger crisis in current century. So let us take up the questions which are based on this discussion. In 2017, there was a map-based question regarding the bordering countries of Mediterranean Sea. So we have created a question based on bordering countries of Red Sea, and options are Jordan, Ethiopia, Egypt, Sudan. And you have to find the correct answer by using the codes. So for this, let us have a look at the map. Now here Red Sea is there. You can see Egypt, Sudan, Eritrea, Djibouti, Yemen, Saudi Arabia are the countries which are bordering Red Sea. Ethiopia is not there, and Jordan is also not bordering Red Sea. So you can, here our answer would be 3 and 4, that is C only, Egypt and Sudan. The next question that you can expect from this news article or this place in news is similar to what has been asked in 2015 about Golan Heights. So we have curated a question based on Darfur, and as you can recall, Apart from the north and south conflict, there is a conflict going on in Darfur region. Not only Darfur region, there are three major regions which are witnessing all kind of troubles, violence, and conflicts. First is the Darfur, the central, south, east, west. Second region is the West Kordofan, South Kordofan, and another region is just above this Kordofan and below the capital Khartoum is the Nuba Mountains. All these three areas are disturbed areas and are facing violence since last 2 years. So Darfur is related to Northeast Africa. Now, the last question is related to the persecuted communities. As we have seen that UPSC in 2016 asked about the Kurd, Madhesis, and Rohingya. All communities were in crisis in their homelands. So, we have curated the similar question that communities for Zaghawa and Masalit sometimes appear in news in the context of events related to. Answer would be Sudan. Fine. So that's all for this discussion. Let us move on to the next discussion of today's session, which is based on this news article which featured on page number 6 of the Hindu newspaper. Now, in this news article, retired Admiral Karambir Singh has opined or argued for establishment of Indian Defence University. Now, he says that he put forth his argument on the basis of recommendation of various committees and practice that has been going on worldwide. There are several countries like USA, UK, who have their own defense universities. So author says that though we have various institutions, educational as well as technical training institution, which are run by the army and that are world class institution, but what we lack is a integrated professional military education. We lack an integrated professional military education framework through Indian with a central university, a defense university. Matter is concerning even more because our neighbor Pakistan has already established two universities, while China has officially started three defense universities. Further, if you will go by the Indian history itself, the in way back in 1967, the chief of staff committee recommended the creation of Indian Defence University. Post Kargil War also, the K. Subramaniam Committee also recommended the creation of Indian Defence University. In 2010, there was a principal approval to create and develop a university in Gurgaon, Haryana, but nothing has been done yet. It is still a proposal and nothing concrete has been done. So he put forth his case by discussing various aspects that why it is important. Why it is important for you? Because security issues, as mentioned in GS paper 3 syllabus, security challenges are there in your syllabus, and any initiative which is related to the security agencies apparatus is important from the perspective of UPSC examination, just to enrich your answer. So why there is a need of defense university? There are four major reasons. The first is the nature of war itself, that is, it has become dynamic. Now, wars are witnessing use of drones, use of AI, use of social media, use of cyber attack. So officers and armed force personnel should be well equipped with knowledge that would help them to address any unforeseen circumstances. They should be very innovative in their approach, and they must have a foolproof plan to address any of such scenario, because technology has been growing, and no country is going to showcase each and every of its technology before the war. So there must be a dedicated integrated platform where every new technology, every new development in the world should be taught and should be practiced, not only taught, so that officers and any individual who is associated with armed force, whether it is planning or execution, must be aware of all these things, and should be capable of tackling all those uncertainties. Second thing is the it will boost the strategic thinking quotient, because there would be case studies. You can extract your learning from the previous wars, the contemporary wars. There would be practical exercises. So, through these case studies and practical exercises, officers would be trained in a manner so they can assess and respond in a proper manner. So, it kind of gives them a practical understanding of the situation. Second is the development of leadership, which third is the development of leadership, which is again very important, because leadership is responsible not only for morale but also for cohesion among the troops. And this morale and cohesion will result into effective execution in a coherent manner. So they can involve programs like role play exercises. They can involve the mentorship program by the war veterans, or leadership programs by the various leaders, famous leader or acknowledged leader in various fields. So all these things can be inculcated in a structured manner. Lastly, culmination of all this will come into better execution of plan, because institute will emphasize on translating strategic objectives into actionable plans. So rather than just having it on pen and paper, the officers and staff would be ready with the actionable plan, and they will have a kind of exposure to different kind of scenario, which will help them in taking right decisions in the field altogether. So that is all from this news article, and that is all from the perspective of mains discussion. Now we will move on to discuss the prelim section. And the first question is based on this news article, which featured on page number 1 of the Indian Express newspaper. Now there are allegations that the manner in which delimitation has been conducted in Assam is more is there are allegations that it is more on the basis of religious lines. They have carved out constituency in a manner that it is more reflective of religious divide rather than a proper delimitation exercise which is objective and rational in its approach. So first you must understand what is delimitation. So delimitation is nothing but redrawing of boundaries of a constituency or a electoral state. electoral area. Redrawing of constituency or electoral area. Now, this exercise is conducted periodically so that to ensure that each constituency has roughly same number of voters. Now, understand this with this example. Now, let's say the population, these dots will represent population. Now, you can clearly understand that here the population density is very low. Now, let's assume this is one constituency and 5 voters are there. Now, a similar size of constituency has been carved out here, but here let's say 50 voters are there. So, what do you think? These 5 voters in case 1 are voting for one candidate, and these 50 voters are voting for this one candidate. So the value of these 5 voters in first case is way more than the value of these 50 voters voting for the same person. Now, for these, second issue is for these 5 persons there would be one representative, whereas these 50 persons would be represented by another representative, which is kind of imbalance, which is kind of impractical or injustice to the voters altogether. So, what delimitation does, it ensures that each constituency has roughly, because it is not practically possible to have equal number of voters, but roughly equal number of voters, so that it can establish or it can withstand or it can protect the principle of one vote, one value, so that everyone will have a equal weightage of their vote. Fine. Now, why it is done on a regular basis? Because demographic composition changes with time. Let's understand this. Let's say after one delimitation, this, your first diagram, the population distribution changes. Now, the first area along with a common contiguous area is now more densely populated, and population from the earlier area has kind of moved out. Now again, if you will go by the previous delimitation, there would be two different, again now, if you will go by the same delimitation, this area will, people of this area will suffer, or sorry, people of this area will suffer, because again there would be no proportionality. So this is done on a regular basis, periodic basis, so that number of voters in each constituency roughly remains same, so that the principle of one vote, one value can be upheld. Fine. So who is responsible for creating the delimitation commission? Article 82 says that Parliament, it empowers Parliament to legislate delimitation acts from time to time, and by exercising that power, 4 delimitation has been done in 1952, 62, 72 and 2002. So why we have taken up this news article for prelims? Because UPSC has been asking question based on important features of the constitution, the important provisions. As you can see, representation of people act has been asked, the age of the eligibility of voter and ministers has been asked. These are important feature and particularly related to the election year. Fine. So we have taken up a practice MCQ based on delimitation. You have to identify the incorrect statements. Fine. So the first part you have seen. Now, what is the composition? Composition, again, by using the Article 82, Parliament Legislate Delimitation Act, and Delimitation Commission is appointed by the President of India, and the composition include Chief Election Commissioner or This is not an, this is or. Chief Election Commissioner or any other election commissioner nominated by Chief Election Commissioner, a retired Supreme Court judge, and election commission of the concerned state where delimitation exercise is going on. Further, order of delimitation commission cannot be called in question before any court of law. Third, these order to be led before House of People and state legislative assembly, but no modification are permissible therein. Further, 84th and 87th amendment. Now this is an important point, that allocation of seats in Lok Sabha is freezed for 1971 census. So number of seats for Lok Sabha will be decided on the basis of 1971 census, while the delimitation, the demarcation of boundaries is to be done on the basis of 2001 census. Okay. Now, important role, we already seen that one vote, one value, achieve the ideals, adequate representation of vulnerable section, including scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, by just delimiting in a manner that their representation is adequate as per their number. Fair division of geographical area to ensure that communities do not get unrepresented or underrepresented. Fine. So let us take a practice question. You have to identify the incorrect statements. So first statement says it ensures balance of representation to achieve the ideals of one vote, one value. This is correct. Second says it enables adequate representation to vulnerable section, including scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. This is also correct. Third statement says that Constitution provides guidelines as to how the constituencies shall be delimited. Now this statement is also correct. How? Because if you will see Article 81, subclause 2, subclause A, Constitution provides some guidelines that there shall be the seats to Parliament shall be allotted to each state a number of seats in the House of People in such manner that the ratio between that number, the number of seats, and the population of the state is so far as practicable same for all states. Second, each state shall be divided into territorial constituencies in such manner that the ratio between the population of each constituency and the number of seats allotted to it so far practical, the same should remain the same throughout the state. So no matter in what manner you want to delimit the area, it can be a circle simple, it can be anything, but the basic principle should remain same, that ratio of population and seat should be same across the state, and when you will compare different state, that ratio should remain same. So this is also a correct statement. So none, that is D, would be your answer. Now another news article is based on this news, which featured on Business Line newspaper, page number 8, and it reads as paving legal path to make pink hydrogen. Now government is in talk with the private corporation, the big corporate houses, to invest into regulated nuclear sector. The major focus would be in generation of pink hydrogen, which is again a clean source of power. So this would also be a part of this discussion. Now UPSC has been asking question based on new technologies, the development in India and abroad. So we have taken up this news article. And why government is taking up this initiative now? Because at present the atomic or the nuclear power plant are controlled, run by the government entities, the public sector units. Government has a control over it. Private sector is not allowed under Atomic Energy Act 1962. They can be a part of that project by delivering some critical units like reactor or something like that. They can deliver the parts, but they cannot own and operate a nuclear power plant as of now. So central government through Nuclear Power Corporation of India holds the authority for activities related to nuclear energy, including its production, development, use, and disposal. Now, in 2015, the amendment to this Nuclear Energy Act, it allowed NPCIL to form joint venture with other public sector units, not private unit. So private units are still out of the option. So what government is trying to do is to explore a PPP model, public private partnership, so as to involve the private sector into the nuclear energy sector. And the focus, as we told, is also on pink hydrogen. So let us understand what is pink hydrogen, why it is termed as pink. So for your understanding, hydrogen is a colorless gas. So the color that has been attributed to hydrogen is based on the methodology through which it is being produced. So color like gray hydrogen. So what we use in production of the gray hydrogen, the fossil fuels are used, such as natural gas or coal. So in this process, the major two processes are steam methane reforming and coal gasification process. Now, in these two processes, CO2 is produced. Now, when CO2 is released to atmosphere, directly to the atmosphere, the hydrogen produced through this process would be termed as gray hydrogen, and it constitutes around 95% of the total hydrogen produced, the gray hydrogen. Then comes the blue hydrogen. Process is same. Through steam methane reforming and coal gasification using fossil fuel, you are producing hydrogen. But here, the CO2 is not being released to atmosphere directly. Here, it is being captured and stored, what you call sequestered, by using carbon capture and storage techniques. Now, this is because the carbon capture technique involves cost. This is a costly method, and that is why most of 95%, as you have seen, hydrogen is being produced as a gray hydrogen, not as a blue hydrogen. So only difference is when CO2 is released in atmosphere, it is gray. When it is captured and stored underground, it is blue. Now, what is green? As the name suggests, here fossil fuels would not be used. Here renewable energy, clean energy will be used, like solar energy, wind energy. And process that would be used is electrolysis. Electrolysis. Here, H2O molecule will be split into hydrogen and oxygen. So through this electrolysis process, we will use the green electricity and water to produce hydrogen, and oxygen will be released. Now, similar to blue hydrogen, what is pink hydrogen? Now, you might have understood the process. Here, as a clean energy, solar, wind and other energy will not be used. Nuclear energy will be used to produce pink hydrogen through method of electrolysis. Now, lastly, there is turquoise hydrogen also. Now, this method this process is called methane pyrolysis. CH4, methane pyrolysis. So, in this process, methane is split into hydrogen and solid carbon with heating in reactors or blast furnace. So, here the question is based on matching different process, the hydrogen and the sources. You have to identify the correct pairs. So, first option is gray hydrogen. Now, you know it is produced through burning of use of fossil fuel. So, this pair is correct. Pink hydrogen is here written methane pyrolysis. You know that pink hydrogen is associated with nuclear power. Turquoise hydrogen is rather associated with methane pyrolysis, while green hydrogen is produced from using renewable sources. So only two pairs are correctly matched. That brings us to the next question of today's discussion, uh, in which Maharashtra is planning to translocate its tigers from Tadoba Andhari tiger reserves to Sahyadri tiger reserves. Now, important tiger reserves and national parks have been a recurrent theme in UPSC examination. As you can see here in 2014 itself, they have asked a question based on Dampa, Gumti and Saramati Peak. So answer is C for this PYQ. And here in 2022, there was a counting of tiger. There was no evidence of tiger in 2022 counting in the Sahyadri Tiger Reserve. So here we will cover important information related to Sahyadri Tiger Reserve, and then we will solve the MCQ. So Sahyadri Tiger Reserve spans from Kolhapur, Satara, Sangli and Ratnagiri district of Western Maharashtra. So, as the name suggests, located in Sahyadri reserves, and forms a common boundary between Maharashtra, Karnataka and Goa. So, it is very important tiger reserve, kind of completes the contiguous tiger reserve area. But problem is, there is no tiger in this tiger reserve, and this is not the only one. There are 4 others where the 2022 census could not find any trace of tiger population, and these 4 are Kaval in Telangana, Kamlang in Arunachal Pradesh, Dampa in Mizoram and Satkosia in Odisha. So question is based on this information, that how many of the above mentioned tiger reserves has 0 tiger in their reserve, and now you know that all 4 have 0 population of tiger in these mentioned tiger reserve along with the Sahyadri tiger reserve. So C would be your answer. Now the next question is based on this news article which featured on page number 15 of the Indian Express newspaper, and it says that over 1/3 anti-dumping duties levied in cases with sole or 2 producers in financial year 22. Now, what is the main finding of this news article is that out of 46 anti-dumping duty which has been levied, 60% are levied on products and goods which have their origin in China. So it's kind of finding that China is practicing anti-dumping, the dumping exercise in trade, which is an unfair practice. We will discuss that. And India is alert in its approach to save its domestic producers and manufacturers. And international trade and related information is important from UPSC examination, as in 2020, UPSC asked question based on various data related to import. So here we have taken up a question based on anti-dumping duty. So before that, let us understand what is anti-dumping. Now, anti-dumping is an unfair trade practice, the dumping, not anti-dumping, where what happens, let's say country X is exporting to country Y. Now the product that country X is exporting to country Y, it will land cheaper than what is the normal price in the country of origin itself. So let's say if country X is exporting a product which has a value of rupees 10 in their own domestic market, but when they will export, it is rupees 8 in the at the exporting destination. So this is a clear cut, you may say, step or methodology to capture the market of the country of the destination country by dumping the cheaper goods, because in your country it is costlier, but you are sending cheaper goods to another country just to capture the market and to disturb the local manufacturer. So when industry and those who are involved in the industry, they report it to Directorate General of Trade Remedies, which is an office under Ministry of Commerce and Industry. It investigates the matter and then recommends an anti-dumping duty in case of a consequential serious injury to domestic industry. Now, this recommendation is transferred to Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs, which is CBIC, under Ministry of Finance. So, they have to take decision within 3 months. They can accept, they can refuse, but it should be done within 3 months from the date of final hearing. So this this DGTR will report, investigate the issue, will report it to the Finance Ministry, and Central Board, that is CBIC, will take decision whether dumping duty has to be put in place or not, and that would be final, and they have to do it within 3 months. Now, the imposition of anti-dumping duty is a legitimate trade remedial measure under WTO's General Agreement on Trade and Tariff, that is GATT 1994. So it is a legitimate trade remedial measure to protect the domestic industry. So another important key term which is similar to it, not same, is countervailing duty. Now here what we saw, that you are exporting a product at a price which is lower than your own domestic price. But countervailing duty is applied to offset the subsidies that you have provided subsidies to that product in your market. The exporting country I am talking about. Exporting country will provide some subsidies so that the product cost is low. Now they are exporting it to some destination. Now to offset this subsidy, countervailing duty is imposed. So here subsidy part is not there in anti-dumping. In countervailing, subsidy quotient is there. The component of subsidy is there. So let us see the question, and we have to find the correct answer. First statement is anti-dumping duties on imports are imposed to offset the subsidies. No, because countervailing duty is imposed to offset the subsidy. Here it says that DGTR, that is Director General of Trade Remedies, imposes anti-dumping. You know that this is also incorrect. It recommends, but this is CBIC under Ministry of Finance which imposes the duty. Now, third statement says anti-dumping duties are prohibited under WTO rules. Again, incorrect. It is considered as a legitimate trade remedial measure. So, as we have to find the correct answer, all three statements are incorrect. So, our answer would be D, that is none. That brings us to the last topic of today's session, which is based on the news article which featured on page number 13 of Indian Express newspaper. Now, researchers in Sweden have found that a freestanding sheet of gold that is only 1 atom thick, that is 10 to the minus 8 centimeter or meter. To understand it more practically, have you seen these silver and gold leaves which we use, these fine paper like thing, a thin sheet of gold or silver which we generally use in decorating sweets? You might have seen them. So this discovery, the 1 atom size is 400 times thinner than the thinnest available commercial gold leaf. So that is how thin it is. And through this discovery, this 2D, gold became first metal to have the freestanding 2D sheets, two-dimensional sheets. Earlier, graphene, which is derived from carbon, was not metal. So gold is probably the first metal to have this freestanding 2D sheets of 1 atom or less size. So important discoveries which are in news are very important from the perspective of examination. As you can see, ice cube was asked in the year 2015. So we have taken up a practice MCQ based on the characteristic of Goldene. So the first statement, as we know, it is freestanding sheet of gold which is only 1 atom thick. This is correct. And it is world's first known freestanding 2D metal. This is also correct because a study is going on for iridium and platinum, but no result has been found. So probably scientists say that this is the first known metal to have freestanding 2D model. Now it has potential to revolutionize the electronics industry. True, it has potential because now it is so thin that just imagine the amount of gold that is required in electronic machinery or chips or anything. Now less amount of gold will be sufficient to make the same amount of electronic circuits or chips or anything. So it could serve as a more economically viable catalyst than thicker gold, requiring fewer attempts for the same function. This could lead to more efficient use of gold in electronics given its electrical conductivity properties. So that's all for today's session. For this question, your answer would be all three, that is A, B, C. And if you like our initiative, do like the video and subscribe to the channel. If you have any doubt, you can drop it in the comment box. Our team will respond to you as soon as possible. Thank you very much.